Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar, focusing on the education behind cybersecurity, more specifically security awareness training. My name is Andrew. I'm from Phin Security. I also have Adam from Phin Security on our partner experience team as well. He's joined us and is going to be doing a lot of the presentation today. So really excited to dive into the content. Before we do that, while people are still trickling in here, wanted to remind everyone that as Phin Security, we have two webinars that we host. So we have one that is every other week for our Phin Security partners. We also have one on the weeks that we're not doing those. We're doing a bi-weekly end user webinar that focuses on the education to the end user, basically how to engage, or how they can stay engaged in SAT, how easy it is with Phin, what the experience is like, how it's changed over time. So really valuable content. Definitely want to direct you to look into both webinars, registering for both in the future. And so both are on our website as well. Awesome. It looks like we have people trickling in, so I'll go ahead and get started with the content. So today's focus, like I said, is on being able to educate every client in terms of cybersecurity, as well as security awareness training. How to increase that buy-in from those end users, from those stakeholders, to actually complete trainings, to get their team to complete trainings, and some really insightful information behind some of the statistics behind it, consequences of inaction. So getting into kind of the itinerary for today and what we're going to be talking about. So kind of did a welcome already, and we're going to be talking about selling cybersecurity, what those conversations look like with your customers, overcoming objections that we'll talk about here in a second, flipping the script, tools to simplify that process, make it easy as possible for all sides, some best practices, resources for you, some Q&A, and then closing as well. So with that, I will pass it over to our resident expert, Adam.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. And thanks, everybody, for joining us today. As we all know, it's really difficult having these conversations about cybersecurity, especially when it comes down to the end user who just may not be as aware or familiar, or why it's even something that's important. So obviously, a lot of these places are going to start in conversation. So I really wanted to start off with something that probably sounds very familiar. I'm sure many of us have had conversations with potential clients before about cybersecurity, and a lot of times they'll say, cybersecurity sounds great, but I can't afford that. That's too expensive. Or they'll say, we already did an annual training once. We don't really need it now, or we're too small to be a target. They think that they're so small of a business that, they're insignificant over the grand scheme of things. And these are really common misconceptions that can really leave businesses vulnerable. And it is really crucial to shift that conversation away from just cost to also value, and how one-time training is not enough, and how it needs to be ongoing, and that you need to create a perception of real world threats and make that relative to them, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not sure if any of you know this, you may, but 62% of small to medium businesses are open to switching providers for the right solution. So clearly there is a desire there to align themselves with the right solutions and with the right MSPs to represent them. Without that representation, 60% of those will typically fall victim, and they'll have to close business after 6 months of falling victim to a cyber attack, just because of how exorbitant the cost can be. And this is really where a lot of disparity is over the cost versus value. What does it look like to have action versus inaction? Now, as I said before, the reason clients are going to hesitate a lot to invest in cybersecurity is not always going to be due to cost. More times than not, they just don't understand the why behind it. And it's up to us to arm them with the information needed to understand the risks and to make an educated decision in regards to cybersecurity. I do have some stats here just in general of what the landscape looks like. Approximately 3.4 billion phishing emails are sent daily. 57% of organizations experience a phishing attempt on a weekly basis, and 1 out of 100 emails generally have malicious intent. So when you have this as a landscape that the everyday end user has to work within, you can see that it's an uphill battle, and there's a lot of things working against them, and they don't understand why. So we've already kind of talked about it a little bit. So why is this challenging? Why is selling cybersecurity challenging? A lot of clients are going to just see it as a cost rather than an investment. It's really up to us to illustrate how it's an investment. They may have difficulty connecting themselves to real vulnerabilities and risks that they may have to deal with. And it's a lack of understanding and a lack of awareness, which is why they don't see the value in the investment. It all kind of ties together. More times than not, the jargon that's used internally can be really overwhelming and confusing for a client. They may not understand all these acronyms, what they mean. It's very confusing for them. So a lot of time there's uncertainty. And when you have that, you're unable to overcome a lot of the common objections that you're going to get from someone. So remember, a lot of the objections that you're going to get are generally rooted in either a fear, a lack of trust, or there's an uncertainty around it. So it's really up to us to make sure we help educate them, make sure that we're listening, we understand, we reassure. Because again, this is uncharted territory for us. For them, it's very familiar to us. We are the experts here. So it's up to us to kind of guide them through this process and really advise them and give them the best protocols and practices. Again, keeping in mind that fear, distrust, and uncertainty are going to be the most common reasons why they are objecting to being part of a cybersecurity program, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to come up with, some ideas of common objections you're going to get and what you could potentially say. Now, I understand that these are very canned responses. They don't reflect organic conversation. However, these are going to be a lot of common things that you're going to hear. And it's really beneficial to understand that this is what's going to be coming at you and knowing what you can say or a way to kind of readdress this. So obviously, if somebody says that I can't afford to be secure, you want to make sure that you address the fact that it's more than just paying for the cybersecurity. You also have the cost of recovering yourself from a data breach, and that's going to be a far greater investment than just overall prevention through a program. You may offer flexible plans or budgets or packages, things like this. If they already have cyber insurance, obviously we want them to have cyber insurance. It's a smart move to have cyber insurance, but it doesn't help them. It's only meant to help them recover from an incident. It's not meant to help prevent it. So again, there's a lot of different reasons here that you can overcome. And there's a few others that I have as well coming up. They're too small to be a target. We know that this is actually the exact opposite. Most bad actors and cyber criminals are going to actually target small businesses. So the prime target, and it's generally because they have fewer resources dedicated to security or education around cybersecurity. So again, we understand that they are really the lion's share of where a lot of these attacks are coming from, and yet they're the most ill-equipped for it. So again, we're noticing some trends where a lot of these antiquated thoughts around cyber insurance are really causing more harm than good over the long term. So while you're having these conversations with your clients, you really want to ask yourself, is my client aware of their potential vulnerabilities? Have I created enough value for them? Do I understand specifically my client's pain points? These are really important questions to ask yourself throughout this process, because it's really going to be a good way to do a temperature check to make sure that a lot of what you're talking about and discussing is going to resonate and align with the specific needs of that client that you're working with. A big thing to consider: is this client in a specific industry or vertical? Are they aware of potential risks that they have? Am I aware of potential risks that they have? Again, it all is about bringing a point of relativity to each particular tenant that you're going to be working with, or each client that you're working with, because they all are going to have unique needs. So as we were just mentioning, obviously industries are going to have specific risks. Now, I won't go through all of these, but again, the intent of this is to give you, some kind of anecdotal evidence or a particular instance that could be a vulnerability that this particular tenant may have. So for healthcare, they may end up having an email that's disguised as something coming from a medical supplier. If there's any issues there, you're going to have to deal with HIPAA compliance violations, stolen patient data, lawsuits, regulatory fines. If you're dealing with somebody in finance, there could be a fraudulent email that's coming from a bank CFO. They may trick an employee into wiring funds to the malicious actor. So then you have direct financial loss. There's client trust erosion that you're dealing with. There's potential regulatory scrutiny that you're going to have to deal with. Again, it's all about kind of knowing some particularities about that tenant, what issues they may be dealing with, and making sure that they understand their risk. And you're kind of bringing that to them, because that's really where a lot of the value in this conversation is going to be had. How does this relate specifically to them? What are their specific vulnerabilities? What are their potential risks? And I do have a few different industries that we'll go through. So retail, e-commerce, manufacturing. So for e-commerce, somebody could fake being customer support. We've seen it through emails. We've even seen it on social media, and they use that as a means of getting payment data on customers. Or if you're manufacturing, you may end up getting a ransomware attack that has to deal with a particular network, and then you're going to have certain delays. So there's a lot of different issues that you're going to have to deal with. And it's good to know what it is that particular person is going to be dealing with. Again, education and governments. So these are going to be some big ones. So you have like a ransomware attack that locks down an entire school network. It's during exams. It causes disruptions for learning and for testing. You're going to have to deal with delayed schedules, any recovery costs in order to get that back on schedule, especially if it has to do with state testing, things like that. For government, it could be a spear phishing attack that's targeting government employees, and it's pretending to be a senior official that could compromise national security and public trust. So again, you are more aware of what it is that these particular clients are going to be dealing with. So using things like this is really going to help illustrate and create a picture for them of what that vulnerability is and why cyber insurance is so pertinent in helping them to prevent and avoid this. So this is where you just really want to flip the script. You want to make it all about them. So we've talked about this before. I know I'm rehashing some things, but it's really important that we drive these things home and make sure that when we're having conversations with someone about cyber insurance and cyber security and security awareness training, we're discovering and we're understanding their pain points. You want to make sure that you're conducting some type of assessment and making sure that you're uncovering real world risks and vulnerabilities. You may have relatable scenarios that you yourself have with another client of yours that may relate to them. You want to make sure that you're able to personalize the risks specific to their industry. You really want to make sure that you're relating everything as much as possible, because again, it's a big sea of uncertainty for them. They really don't know much about cybersecurity. They don't know why it's important. We're the experts. We want to make sure that we're coming into it with that. You're addressing specific needs. If they have cyber insurance policies or certain compliances they need to adhere to, what are we doing to make sure that they meet those and satisfy those? It's essential that you collaborate with a co-managed admin as well. We find most success that you're going to find is having an advocate at the company level that's able to work with the users, especially if you have troubled ones that don't seem to be very compliant. They don't really participate in the training. A lot of the most successful partners that we have are leveraging somebody who's invested at that company level, so that way they can really kind of disseminate information, let everybody know it's not just a one and done. This is a consistent effort that you constantly have to be working toward. And again, just make sure you're comparing the cost of action versus inaction. Obviously, there are certain costs that are associated when you actually do fall victim to an attack and how you bounce back from that. It's good to kind of show the juxtaposition of what that cost looks like versus just a monthly cost of prevention and education. Again, these are the things that you're wanting to do. When we're talking about the client's pain points, you want to identify their unique gaps and vulnerabilities. Use specific examples where it makes the need for security awareness training more tangible and relative to them. And always be sure to identify any cyber insurance or compliance requirements, because that is really going to give you the ammunition that you need to get everybody to stay compliant and really buy into just cybersecurity in general. Those, especially the ones that you have that have something like that, because there's something they need to satisfy, there's something they're being upheld to. And generally, you'll find that the ones that have that are going to be much better participants in overall training in general. Again, telling the narrative, making it personal, always using real world examples to them of businesses that may have succeeded or failed. There's always nice to have cautionary tales. If there's metrics, data points, case studies that you may have about, specific clients, and their vulnerabilities, they may have shared in industry. Obviously you don't have to use exact information just for privacy, but it's always good to paint a picture for situations like this, especially when you're the expert and you're trying to educate somebody who is not in that particular topic. And always make sure that you're addressing the objections and any costs. So again, what is the cost of action versus inaction? What is the cost of prevention, education, and advocacy versus falling victim to an actual attack? Making sure that there's somebody at the company level that you're able to collaborate with. Offer a roadmap for implementation or engagement. Give really clear next steps, expectations of what this looks like, because really they're looking to you for this information. And a lot of what you're going to offer them is going to be best practices to help them make sure they maintain cybersecurity and cyber awareness.
Awesome. I will go ahead and kind of cover this last bit here with some tools of more supplemental education of how to do those things that Adam mentioned. So, a lot of it is, like Adam mentioned, telling a narrative, personalizing, really making it applicable to the company so that they can choose to act or not. But with Phin, right, we're here to help with some of those objections as well. And so, we have lots of different supplemental material, enablement docs. We actually just revamped these not too long ago, really just showing, a few things, how easy it is to, complete trainings with Phin, what the experience is like, to really just alleviate some of those ideas that this is going to be some painstaking experience and the clients and the end users don't want to do it. But in reality, it offers up information like 90% of Phin's trainings are actually 5 minutes or less. And so I think just, clients having that information and users having that information will assist with a lot of those conversations that you're having. So we have the flyer, the enablement doc, the feature sheet here that you can see. So lots of really cool features that are, relevant to end users, relevant to clients, maybe co-manage admins that are helping you manage this. So, definitely recommend checking those out. These are, all linked in here, and we also have this in our knowledge base as well. And we also have tools to, be able to engage end users as well. We have a webinar just like this, specifically designed to help engage your end users. And like I said, establishing that importance of security awareness training, how it's changed over time, and again, how easy the experience is with Phin. So that's every Tuesday that we're not doing these Phin partner webinars that we're doing today. We're doing ones that focus on the end user and all those things that I said earlier. We also have we do Phin meetings with all of our Phin partners, really highlighting that value and going over some of the strategies that Adam mentioned as well, new feature updates, things like that. And so, constantly trying to have those resources available for you guys to make those conversations go as easy as possible. E-guides are a big part of that as well. And again, all these things are doing is just making it as easy as possible for you to have these conversations, and establishing this is actually a really easy experience. It doesn't need to be painstaking. This is how we can help you drive engagement with your client and end users. So, big takeaways. As Adam mentioned, emphasize value, conduct assessments, risk mitigation, compliance, business continuity. Just really, establishing that narrative, that personalization aspect is huge of it. Making it relatable, industry specific, so that they can relate it, to their specific clients and some anecdotes that come with that. And then building that trust, being transparent, highlighting what the cost might be, regularly meeting with them, doing like a quarterly review type of thing, setting the reporting and providing those updates as the MSP. And as Adam mentioned, I think a huge aspect of all of that too is having that stakeholder, or I should say that advocate at the company level, to really, either incentivize this or hold people accountable for, taking these types of trainings as well. So that's a huge part of it as you get into it. So next steps. So we've got lots of resources. So as I mentioned, you can explore the Phin knowledge base. Those are ones, the partner resources that I mentioned earlier, those are all in our knowledge base under Phin partner resources. So feel free to check that out, and then we've also have guides on how to actually do different actions within Phin itself. Leveraging those tools and resources that I mentioned. You can attend webinars. We have registration links in our knowledge base, schedule meetings with the Phin team. We're always open to meet with any of our partners or any potential prospects as well, to chat through really any of this, anything related to cybersecurity, security awareness training, or Phin as well. So, don't be shy. We're happy to have a conversation. Feel free to reach out and we can set up a time as well. So, I note at the bottom here, I think it's just so true. Selling cybersecurity doesn't have to be hard, just has to be human. Just establishing that trust, that transparency goes a long way. So with that, I will open it up. I don't see any questions at this time, but while we have a couple of minutes, feel free to type those in the chat. We're happy to answer any of those questions that you guys might have. If you don't think of any in this session or don't want to ask them here, that's totally fine too. Like I said, we're always open to have a meeting, respond to anything via email. Our support line, our support team is great as well. So feel free to ask us anything there as well. But for now, we just want to say thank you everyone so much for being a fanatic and for being an advocate of Phin. These conversations that I mentioned, they're not easy to have. This is a framework that Adam outlined to essentially get those conversations started to increase that buy-in, right? And so, I think Adam did an awesome job presenting that information. So thank you, Adam. I appreciate it for doing all that and making that awesome presentation. So yeah, that's really all we have for you today. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. I don't see any in the chat, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
Talk to you soon.